essence of Detroit heavy metal stopped fishtailing its back wheels. The station wagon's taillights were already barely visible in the distance. The black and white might be old and inefficient by modern standards, but it had been built when gas consumption was an afterthought, and muscle cars were the rage. Law enforcement needed to compete, and the Chevy still could. The Magnum, if that's what it was, could probably outmaneuver Wynn's patrol car, but there weren't many things on the road that could outrun it. Wynn's chase went on for nearly 10 minutes, covering a lot of county since the deputy was doing well over 100 miles per hour. But so was the station wagon. Wynn was gaining, but never enough to get a good look at the vehicle he pursued, especially when it turned its lights off. The chase went through 3 hamlets, each with a stop sign that both cars ignored. Fortunately, the sidewalks had been rolled up in all of them. The only traffic Wynn encountered was a pair of semis, one going in each direction. They wisely pulled over to make way. Wynn was beginning to doubt he'd catch up before they got to Buffalo Springs. The last thing he wanted to do was go blasting through Benteen's county seat in high-speed pursuit. Even at this time of the morning, there might be a car on Main Street. If he was responsible for an accident there, Sheriff English might have his badge. Maybe I can trick them, he thought. He turned off all his lights. They might think he'd given up, slow down some so he could get right behind them. English would have more than his badge if he found out about this part. But if Wynn brought in a drug mule and hundreds of kilos of heroin or cocaine or even marijuana, he'd be the kind of law enforcement hero no one ever replaced. And there had to be something important in that vehicle for it to be running from him with its lights out like this. He could still see it all right, or almost all right. Well enough for him to know they were coming up on the 4-way stop at Jacob's Corner, an experiment in middle-of-nowhere truck stops that had been out of business for more years than Wynn had been a deputy. In fact, the moon was so bright he could practically see colors. It took Wynn a couple of seconds to understand he was seeing colors. Flashing red lights. 2 seconds, in which he covered nearly 200 feet. He didn't realize what he was seeing at first. The lights were coming up the intersection road from the south. He only caught a glimpse through a row of trees lining that road before he realized he was practically on top of the station wagon, too. He slammed brakes, grabbed for his headlights. The red lights weren't flashing anymore, but something big and yellow was lumbering out onto the highway ahead of him. Ahead of the black station wagon as well, which was a Magnum. With no time to stop, the Magnum accelerated instead, tried to get by, lost control, and started cartwheeling through the ditch across the road from the old truck stop. Wynn howled in victory as he realized he would catch his suspects. But his howl turned into a scream when a body flew from the tumbling Dodge, and the big yellow vehicle began flashing red lights again as it pulled to a stop, dead square in the middle of the intersection. Wynn couldn't halt the patrol car before he got there. For some reason, he slapped on the light bar, as if the driver would see it and get out of his way, when he realized it was a law enforcement vehicle that was about to T-bone him. In the last seconds, Wynn saw red and blue and white, horror-stricken faces flash into view along the line of windows in the Buffalo Springs school bus. They were turning toward him, mouths open, to echo his primal cry. The church went quiet when Sheriff English entered. It was the Buffalo Springs Church of Christ Risen these days, though it seemed to change names about as often as Central Kansas changed weather. Well, no, you couldn't paint a new name on the sign that fast. The interior was just a big open space, more like the floor of a gym than a site for hallelujahs. Pews were too comfortable, according to Pastor Goodfellow. Folding chairs were good enough. Then the church could rent out the space for meetings, such as the Tuesday morning pancake breakfast of the Buffalo Springs Chamber of Commerce the sheriff had walked into. The sheriff was used to rooms going quiet when he came in these days. People never seemed to know what to say to him, especially not with the election today. "Sheriff, we weren't expecting you after this morning's disaster." The voice was amplified, and the sheriff looked up and found his opponent for office standing behind a microphone and a podium very much like the one he'd been about to pass. Damn. He'd forgotten all about the election morning debate he'd promised to participate in.